Everyone, welcome to the April the 4th meeting of the Baldwin County Commission. And at this time, Pastor Marty Hamilton with the First United Baptist Church here in Bay Minette will lead us in an invocation, followed by the pledge from Commissioner McKenzie.
Good morning. Thank you. Let us pray. Father, I thank you for this day, for your love and your grace, the blessings of life. Father, as we continue through this Holy Week, Lord, we're reminded that on Thursday you share your last meal with your disciples. And we're reminded of your passion and suffering and death on Friday. But Jesus, we are so thankful that Sunday is coming. Easter morning is here. And Father, we will gather in our churches and our homes and our communities to praise you that the tomb will be empty. You bring resurrection. You bring life. Father, a life of service to our fellow man, to one another, to our community and our county. And Father, I thank you for the calling that you've placed in all of our lives to honor you and to follow you as we serve you. Lord, I just thank you for our county commission and the hard work that they and all of our county employees do to provide services and leadership to our county. And Lord, I thank you for our law enforcement and our medical community and our schools and teachers and all those who put their lives behind the needs of others. And Lord, we just pray that you would continue to bless us, continue to lead us, and God, that you would continue to pour out your grace upon all of our lives. In the precious name of our risen Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all for being here this morning. First order of business is the adoption of the minutes from the March 21st, 2023 regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion up here, motion made by Commissioner Ball, seconded by Commissioner Underwood. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. All right, next is the Financial and Administrative Division, payment of the bills.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve payment of the bills and distribution of taxes which are listed in the Baldwin County accounts payable payments.
Second.
All right, got a motion made by Commissioner Underwood, seconded by Commissioner McKenzie to pay the bills. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, the next item is notification of interim payment. That's just a formality that we have to put in here for a record showing that, you know, what was paid by interim. All right, next is the consent agenda.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Before you is your consent agenda. Please note for the record the following. Item CA3 has addendum attachment, site maps and photos. Item CN4 is not to be included in consent, and it must be voted on separately.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve our consent agenda with staff recommendation on noting the item on CA3 and pulling out CN4 to be voted on separately.
I'll second that.
All right, got a motion made by Commissioner Ball, seconded by Commissioner Underwood to accept the consent agenda. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Ayes have it. All right, guess we'll go to CN4. All right, Commissioners?
Well, Mr. Chairman, is that going out of order? We would take care of that. Would we take care of that in other staff? Or take care of it now?
Do it now.
Okay. Well, I didn't know we could. Never mind. Go ahead. CN4.
Okay.
Somebody.
All right, CN4, Ron, would you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. CN4 deals with waiving of County Commission Policy Number 8.14, which is travel and training policy. This is for two individuals to attend the 2023 National Association of County Engineers Annual Conference in Orange Beach, Alabama. and to stay locally there.
Okay. What this is, the county engineer and I guess, I don't know who else is, and the assistant county engineer, they're wanting to stay down at the NACE annual conference in Orange Beach. And Baldwin County is the host county. Matter of fact, they are the ones that has to do all the arrangements for everything down there. And that's why the reason that they were asking for this waiver. So, you know, they're going to have to be there the whole time. You know, it's not if they can just run home, you know, because somebody's got to be there the whole time while while the conference is going on. Do I hear a recommendation for CN4?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve CN4.
All right, got a motion made by Commissioner McKenzie. Do I hear a second?
I'll do a second.
All right, and a second by Commissioner Ball. All right, further discussion?
The only thing I like to say about this is that, like you said earlier, Mr. Chairman, this is a big conference for Baldwin County. And there's going to be a lot of employees throughout the whole country coming down here. And I just think it's a great thing for Baldwin County to shine and let them see what we have. I know a lot of them have probably been down here before. And I just think this is a great opportunity. I know it's a policy that we're going to vote on, but I think it's a great opportunity for us to really look good for the rest of the country. And I hope we can do a great job. And I think it's good for our employees to be able to stay down there and for us to pay for it. They have to drive back and forth. I'd rather them be down there and be safe, and then for them have to drive back and forth to get up early and with the traffic down there. They're going to spend a lot of money down here. There's a lot of people coming down here. So that's all I've got to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
All right. Okay, we'll go on to the presentations.
Mr. Chairman, we note for the record that item CN4 did not pass.
Which one?
Would you note for the record that item CN4 did not pass?
Yes. Yeah, CN4 did not pass. Okay. All right, next, let's go on to presentations now.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, first item under presentations is item DA1. This is a proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month and Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Month for April 2023.
I'll come around, he's going to read the proclamation, and then after the proclamation, we'll be picking up. Yep. Come on, don't be scared.
I'm scared.
Come on, hold on.
Proclaiming the month of April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month and Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Month in Baldwin County, Alabama. Whereas preventing child abuse and neglect is a community problem that depends on involvement from people throughout the community. And whereas children deserve the best we have within us, and they look to us to be their protectors, role models, and heroes. And whereas children who are loved and nurtured grow up to love and nurture others. And whereas children who survive abuse and neglect may carry the burden of their maltreatment into adulthood. And whereas children who have been victims of abuse and neglect are more likely to suffer from substance abuse, depression, learning disabilities, academic failure, emotional and behavioral disorders, and the inability to foster healthy relationships. And whereas child maltreatment knows no social or economic boundaries and occurs in every neighborhood in America. And whereas National Child Abuse Prevention Month is a month-long observance during which communities and organizations raise awareness about the critical issues of child abuse and neglect and educate the public on prevention. And whereas, according to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, otherwise known as RAIN, every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted, and every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. And only 25 out of every 1,000 perpetrators will end up in prison. And whereas only 310 out of every 1,000 sexual assaults are reported to police, meaning that more than 2 out of 3 go unreported. Whereas the most important thing we can do for our victims is believe in them and support them. And whereas National Sexual Assault Awareness Month seeks to raise awareness, find solutions, and foster community involvement, as well as to remember survivors of sexual assault and offer tribute to all victims of sexual assault throughout America each year. And whereas the effects of child abuse and neglect and sexual assault are felt by the entire community, requiring all to join together to take action to create a safer environment for everyone. And whereas the Baldwin County Commission commends the Baldwin County Care House, the Lighthouse, and the Exchange Club Family Center for encouraging all citizens to become more aware of child abuse and neglect and sexual assault within Baldwin County, and for remaining strong and persistent advocates towards the support of all victims of such terrible acts. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Baldwin County Commission in regular session assembled that the month of April 2023 is hereby set aside as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month and Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Month in Baldwin County, Alabama. And everyone is encouraged to join Care House, the Lighthouse, and the Exchange Club Family Center in their collective effort to participate in the prevention of the terrible acts of child abuse and neglect and sexual assault throughout Baldwin County.
Thank you.
And if you want me to take y'all's picture, I can.
I don't know. I'm the picture taker.
After the picture, say something.
Yeah.
Y'all want to come down and get a picture? Well, I'll come down.
Y'all can take one over there and then you
Center.
can come up.
Hey, I'm Nikki Whitaker, the director of the Baldwin County Child Advocacy Center Care House. I just wanted to say thank you year after year. I get to come here at the beginning of April for our county to be able to proclaim April as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. So thank you for that opportunity. Thank you for your support. It means a tremendous difference. We've been in this county for nearly 35 years now, and we couldn't do that without the support of our community. And I would love very much to be able to stand up here and tell you that we've done such a solid, awesome job in prevention that our numbers are decreasing greatly. But sadly, I have to tell you that our intervention numbers have increased. tremendously over the past year, some in some categories more than 50%, and that's including our children served, our forensic interviews, and also our number of counseling sessions where we're working on children who have experienced trauma. But we are continuing to fight that battle of prevention. We're continuing to be in our schools throughout the county where we're doing internet safety and public shows, and we're going to continue to do everything we can to prevent child abuse so that one day I or whoever is with Care House at that time can stand here before you and tell you that our numbers have greatly decreased, and we look forward to that time when it comes. Thank you.
Thank you much.
She was excellent.
The whole smoke group?
Hi, I'm Danielle Lehman. I'm the Sexual Assault Services Manager for the Lighthouse. Can you hear me?
There you go.
I just wanted to say on behalf of the Lighthouse and sexual assault survivors in Baldwin County, thank you for this proclamation. It really shows survivors that it's okay to come forward. It's that there are people here that want to help them and that they have their community support. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Commissioners, I hear a motion that we proclaim the month of March, no,
Mr.
month
Chairman,
of
if you
April
don't mind- if you
2023.
don't mind, can we say a few words?
Well, I'll do the thing, then we'll do, okay, go ahead. Let's go ahead, go ahead. Make
Yeah, I was just gonna tell y'all, thank you for, like every year when y'all come here, thank y'all for what you do. You know, when they say that the children are the future, they really are, and groups like y'all that are intervening in something that happens, it looks like so often, and these children having to deal with this in their minds the rest of their life. There's groups out there like y'all that are trying to make them live whatever type of normal life that they could possibly be living, and thank y'all for stepping up and stepping out and doing that job, knowing how tough it is, as well as the Lighthouse for sexual assault and victims of abuse. All of that being said, I can't imagine putting myself in y'all's shoes and doing what y'all have to do on a daily basis. But somebody's got to do it, and y'all are the team that always does it, and working hand in hand with our law enforcement and everything. Everybody involved in this venture, I commend you and thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
I'd just like to say thank you. Thank you for what y'all do. This is my first time to be with part of this, so it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And to do this for y'all. So thank you.
Commissioner Underwood?
You know, I just can't thank you guys enough for helping people have a voice. And I'm going to try to do this without choking up, but okay, breathe. I talked with Amy Yance recently, and I know the efforts that she's making to help get, I guess, a dedicated hospital physician or examiner to, because you know what? How many times do the people don't want to come forth because they feel like they're going to fall through the cracks? And we need to do better than that here. And I want to applaud you guys for working with a local medical care provider that's got a heart that wants to do this. And this is more on the, I mean, because it don't matter what age you are, what gender, what race, or what you are, you can be a victim. And so she came to me and said, I'm working on this. I get your newsletter. I saw how you guys were talking about that. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to take people talking about it for it to happen. There's going to have to be, hospitals or in our area are private run entities, and hopefully somebody will hear your message and somebody will step up, and wherever the funding needs to come from or the dedication. But the statistics that you guys said just a while ago should make everybody that hears those statistics want to do something about it, and it should make you angry that these things are happening. Now, your numbers may be going up, but that might have to do with we've got more people coming in here all the time. I hope that's the reason, okay? I hope that your efforts are not, I know they're not in vain, okay? I mean, if you just save one person, it's worth it, but I know you're saving many more people than that from future, and giving people that voice And as I don't care if you're female or male, you can be a victim. And I just wanted to say that please don't stop that effort. And with, with Care House, I just hear so many positive things about Care House. And thank you, Nikki, and thank you from the Lighthouse. And I just keep on, because you know what? You never ever know what it means to empower that person that has been taken advantage of in probably the most worst way that we can even imagine. So thank you, guys, and thank you for those who are here today who may have been a victim, that you're able to stand up and say, hey, no more. Thank you.
Just thank each and every one of y'all for the work that you do in this county. Like Commissioner Underwood said, there's so many victims out there that, they're afraid. They've been violated, basically, and they are afraid that they will get earmarked. And so I'm glad that y'all are there to provide these services for these individuals, whichever need it is that they need. And y'all have, done a great job in this county of being able to help. So applaud each and every one of y'all for what y'all doing. Thank you so very much. All right, commissioners?
I got one more question. Can you come up for just a minute? Can you explain to us why you think that it's gone up so much? Because I know the last few times we talked it, we thought it was pandemic related, people always being in the house all the time, not getting out and that kind of stuff. But now it seems like cases even going up more than that. So I just would like to know, I'm gonna write down what you tell me the reason is.
Okay. The pandemic absolutely had an impact. Part of that is what we saw is more physical abuse, more domestic violence. There's also a very strong correlation between domestic violence and sexual assaults. So we also increased, but I think that Commissioner Underwood spoke about the population growth, which I like to assume as well, like that is it. We are growing tremendously. Not only that, but we have a lot of tourists who come into our areas. And so if a crime occurs here, and we can actually start that process with our team in Baldwin County, then before they go back home, we're gonna try to work with that family until we can get them services where they live. So that also has an impact. So our tourist industry, our growth, those two things, absolutely. But I also like to believe that because we're doing the prevention work, that we're actually getting the reports because they understand that what's happening is not okay. And they know to come forward now. And so we still know that we're just barely skimming the surface there, and there's a lot that we don't know. But we do know that some are coming forward because they have the voice, because they felt that they could speak out, where we've had so many of those in the past that has not been the case. But yes, our growth, just for example, we had 106 in counseling the year prior. Last fiscal year, we had 143. The year prior, we had 231 forensic interviews, and then last fiscal year, there were 309. Typically, we do about 1,200 trauma-focused cognitive behavioral sessions a year. Last year, we had almost 2,000. So one of the other things that's happening when we have tremendous growth like that in our counseling sessions is that the trauma is more severe, and we're seeing that, unfortunately. And so that's what I think, the growth, our prevention work in the schools, and the fact that children, we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. Commissioner Gruber spoke of, they're being afraid to come forward, and that is very true still. There's still such a stigma that's associated with that, which we'd love to demolish, but it still exists. And so as a result of that, we do think that we're not getting everyone, but I do think that they're hearing us and they're feeling your support, and they do know that they can come forward, and we're going to believe them, and we're going to do everything that we can to help make them safe, and not just them, but everyone else in the county. So that's what we're seeing.
Thank you so much. And I just note too that, Mr. Chairman, that having our school resource officers in place at some of these schools. I have known some cases that have been brought forward to them as well. Just having a law enforcement presence in the school has helped out tremendously with some of these kids speaking up and speaking out. So with that being said, Commissioner, I do make a motion we adopt this proclamation.
I'll
All right,
second.
got a motion made by Commissioner Ball, seconded by Commissioner Underwood, to proclaim April as the Assault Prevention Awareness Month. All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is item DA2, which is another proclamation, which is Confederate History Month for April 2023. Ms. Felicia Anderson.
Hey there. Miss Mary. Well, I'm going to actually read this for you guys. And let's see. Proclaiming the month of April 2023 as Confederate History Month in Baldwin County, Alabama. Whereas it was during the month of April 1861 that the 4-year tragic struggle of the American Civil War began at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, and ended at Appomattox, Virginia. And whereas the men of Baldwin County, Alabama, without hesitation or evasion, enlisted in the service of the state of Alabama and the Confederate States of America, giving service until the end of the conflict. And whereas Baldwin County did provide for the defense of the state of Alabama and the Confederate States of America numerous military units, including the Baldwin Rangers, the Baldwin Star Rangers, Company C of the 15th Cavalry, the English Independent Cavalry, and the G.E. Hall's Militia. And whereas Baldwin County was the scene of some of the last fighting of the Civil War at Fort Blakely, Spanish Fort, and all the way north to the Monroe line. And whereas many of those veterans and their families lie in marked and unmarked graves in every part of Baldwin County, and the descendants of many of these veterans reside in Baldwin County and cherish the tradition of honor, freedom, and love of home and family passed to them by their ancestors. And whereas it is important for all Americans to reflect upon our nation's past, to gain insight from our mistakes and successes, and to come to a full understanding that the lessons learned yesterday and today will carry us through tomorrow. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Baldwin County Commission in regular session assembled that we hereby proclaim April 2023 as Confederate History Month in Baldwin County, Alabama. I think I forgot the proclamation up there, so give me a second. See me all next day. So this is for you guys. And we'll go up front and take a photo with all of the commissioners, and we'll give you a chance to speak. Okay. We'll go ahead and do the photo, and then we can let you.
You know, I'm not bad, and I'm not wrong, and I don't have a gift to go.
We appreciate you being here.
I just want to thank you on behalf of Mr. Blackman for this proclamation. You know, he loved history. History from the beginning to today. He studied everything there was to study about history. He was passionate about Baldwin County history. He presented to y'all every year in April something new that he found about how Baldwin County affected the Civil War. And he loved doing that research. We would go to places in Baldwin County that you've probably never been, looking for things for him to talk about. Because that, you know, he just thought it was that important that we knew where we stood in history. So I just want to thank you on his behalf for this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. We all know that Baldwin County is the theater for some of the most striking events in our nation. Some of the most important battles were fought here, right here on Baldwin County soil. And Civil War just happened to be one of those battles. We know that sometimes in history there are some things and events that may come up that's painful and uncomfortable to remember. But our history is our identity. Our history is who we are, and we just have to embrace that. Mr. Burt Blackman, he was one of my most favorite sons of the Confederate veterans, and every year he came before you to make a presentation. Commissioner Ball, I'm going to credit all of this to you. Last year you mentioned it would be a great idea if we could have some of Mr. Burt's old lessons. Now, I could not condense some of his teachings in a good format, but we did take his last documentary and we condensed it, so prepare yourself for about 45 minutes or so.
Stay long.
We condensed it to about 10 minutes or so. So at this time, we're going to present Mr. Blackman, and I'll be back.
My name is Burt Blackman, and this whole area, a lot of people don't realize Andrew Jackson, on the way to New Orleans, go south, camp up at Montpelier, up the road here. And on the way back, he stayed long enough to build a little fort up there. And I have been told, but I have not verified it yet, that that's this house he stayed in is where he wrote his resignation to the Army to be sent to Washington, that as soon as he got back, he would be resigning. And of course, on the way to New Orleans, he didn't have a very large contingent of regular Army, but he had fought several years in this area against Indians and Spanish, and he was well known and liked by most of his men. So everywhere he paused, you would have little groups of settlers and say, "Hey, Colonel Andy, you remember me? We fought some Indians a few years." "Yeah, I remember you." "Well, me and these boys would like to tag along if we could." "Come on." And by the time he got to New Orleans, he had a pretty good army of volunteers. And probably the weirdest was when he got there, Jean Lafitte, the pirate, came to visit with him, and he says, "Colonel Jackson, I am Jean Lafitte." And he said, "Oh yeah, I've got a warrant to arrest and hang you." Well, I kind of thought that might be the case, but if we could forget about that nasty hanging business, I would like to allow my crews to join your army. He said, "Well, how many you got?" And Lafitte had several pirate ships, and all his men were pretty good fighters, and they came to an agreement. Jackson would ignore his criminal activity, and Lafitte would promise never, ever to attack any United States ship. They both honored their agreement, and the pirates joined the U.S. Army and fought at New Orleans. And of course, you know the story of how the British were defeated at Fort Boyer on the Baldwin County side, and that turned the tide of the battle and enabled the Americans to hold the Mississippi River, which probably saved the United States. Fort Mims was another of the more dramatic events, and that one was tragic. By the time Fort Mims occurred, those families up there were so intermarried, and that after the battle, when the heat of battle had gone down on the Indians, a lot of them started crying and saying, "Why did we do this? Those were our cousins in that fort." Highway 59 at that time was all dirt road. Matter of fact, Highway 31 was a dirt road until about 1930. And one thing I read, it said the only paved road at one time in all of Baldwin County was the street from the railroad track to the courthouse. All of 59 to Gulf Shores was a dirt trail. And he told me that when you went from Latham to Bay Minette, that was, even if you did it real quickly, it was an all-day trip. There were places where there was no bridge and you had to ford a creek. And if it had been raining, you better have plenty of stuff piled up food-wise because you weren't going anywhere. But each of the little communities, Blackshear, Latham, Montgomery Hills, was a real little town. Now when the railroad came through, that ended all of that. Because prior to the railroad, commerce went up and down the river. Well, the railroad was quicker, and you could carry a lot more stuff on a train than a riverboat. So that pretty much killed the commerce and the passenger trade. Now, a few riverboats persisted on into the early 1900s, but they were dwindling business and the last of the breed. But in the early days, every one of those landings was a riverboat landing, and that's where the boats tied up. And if you had business upstate, you got on the riverboat, you paid your fare, and by morning you could be in Montgomery, depending on the state of the river. When the railroads came, of course, that gave my dad employment, so I can't say too much about them. The railroads had a policy of every mile, the federal government gave them, every mile gave them a section of land, and they checkerboarded it up and down the tracks. One section will be on the west side, the next on the east, and vice versa. Well, the railroad tried to establish a little town every 5 miles up and down the line. Now, they knew some of these towns would never make it, but they reasoned some would, and those towns would provide industry which the railroad could service and make more money. And it worked pretty well. Now, coming into Baldwin County, you had Perdita at the north. Then you had the town of Kearney, which no longer exists. And then coming on south from Kearney, you had Bay Minette. And the first reference I can find to Bay Minette was in 1862 in the Civil War. G.B. Hall, who at that point in time may have been county sheriff, was trying to organize a Confederate militia company, and he complained that the men that lived in Bay Minette just would not volunteer, and they were going to have to be drafted, but you'll have to do it in the middle of the night because they'll run and hide. And when you left Bay Minette, the original railroad was called the Fort Morgan Branch, and the idea was to run it straight south and then turn and go to Fort Morgan. There was no intercoastal canal at that time, so that was not an impediment. They got down there, and when they were about to go through what's now Silver Hill, those farmers flat would not sell a right-of-way. They would not do it, and man, they raised Cain, and some of them were influential enough that the state did not use eminent domain on them. So the railroad made a crook and went through what's now Robertsdale. And it established the towns of Stapleton, Loxley, Robertsdale, Foley. Gulf Shores was not even a town at that point. Nobody wanted, well, why settle there? It's nothing but sand. You can't grow beans or potatoes or anything down there. Few fishermen lived out towards what's now Fort Morgan. That was about it. But the railroad there was to take a 90-degree to the west and run on out to the fort. Well, they started building the line from Fort Morgan back and from Bay Minette south. Now, Bay Minette was a junction. That made it very important. One branch went on down to the Tensas River and eventually crossed the river. Now, that part of the railroad was finished in 1862. Well, the railroad itself, it took some coercion and special law from the state legislature and authorizations, but they got it finished. And you could ride the train all the way to the Tensas River, where they would put the cars on barges, carry it across, run them off on the Mobile side, and you could run all the way across to New Orleans or through Mississippi. General Bragg, well, I'm not going to be too critical of him. Let us say he was extremely lacking as a combat officer. But he was trained as an engineer, and he was extremely good at that. After the war, that's how he made his living. And he recognized the value of that railroad, and he used it frequently to move troops, and he said that railroad line was good for having several extra brigades at each end because of the speed with which you could move an army. The Confederacy recognized that real quick. The Union was a little slower to do so. But the railroad completely changed the character of Baldwin County. Bay Minette became important because it was a junction, and it also sits on a plateau, which is exceedingly good for farming because the land is reasonably flat. Stockton, prior to the railroad, was a very large, thriving town. It had several hotels, a few, let's be polite, establishment that gentlemen would probably like to attend more. And it still has a city charter. But the main part of Stockton was not then where it is now. It was closer to the river. But the charter is still in effect. And during the war, the county seat was Blakely. Unfortunately, it was a ghost town even then. The only thing there was the courthouse. And so there were just almost nobody's left living in Blakely. After the war, they're going to move it from Blakely to Daphne. If you go to Blakely, they have unearthed the foundation of the old courthouse, and you can see the floor of it. It's still there. And there's one photograph that shows a wall of the courthouse. But other than that, we don't have anything other than descriptions of it. I've always enjoyed historic research, which is why I do a lot of the talks to the county. I work for Bicentennial Park, and 90% of what I do is mow grass 3.5 days a week. I've retired 2 times. I did not want another career. This is perfect. I love what I do, and it's a wonderful place to work. It's beautiful up here. If you haven't been up here, you need to come see it. And it's pleasant people to work with. And when I get out on my little mower, I'm in my own world. I plug up my phone. I listen to my history lectures, or I listen to my oldies and my doo-wops on my phone, and I just mow the grass for 8 solid hours a day, and it's basically a wonderful life. My wife is still teaching, and she's going to retire in about another year or so. We do a little bit of traveling. I go to various club conventions, and we make vacations of that. We try to go up to mother's relatives, people's home in the mountains of Virginia once a year. That's a beautiful place. So my life is going well, and I really guess that's pretty much all I have to say. So my immortal closing, I'm through talking now.
I love it.
Okay.
Thank you again, Commissioners. As I go to my seat, I want to take time to let everyone know, or just encourage the public, to just, during Confederate History Month, let us remember and honor those 520,000 lives that were lost in battle. The total number of fatalities that was lost during that battle is equivalent to the Revolutionary War, World War I, World War II, the Mexican War, the Spanish-American War, and the Korean War combined. Those were a lot of lives lost. So let us not focus on the negatives or the controversy, but let us focus on honoring and remembering those lives that were lost in battle. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner,
Yep. Ms. Felicia, Ms. Blackman, everybody involved, I mean, that right there was it's almost like having him back here and hearing it all over again, because what y'all didn't know about Mr. Burt is, me living here in Bay Minette, if I was shopping in Walmart at the same time he was shopping in Walmart, it wouldn't be about history, but we would have a long, deep conversation about what needed to be changed in the county, where I would have to take my ice cream and put it back up in the freezer. It's going to be milk by the end of the time we got through talking. So, I mean, this was a perfect, it turned out just like I thought it would. I mean, Felicia, I can't commend you and your staff enough for putting this together, because this will be definitely an annual event like we always have. I encourage you, Matt, to go back and watch some of our older meetings when we got into office in 2018, 19, those meetings, and just look at some of the presentations that he did right there at that podium. Sit back, get you a bag of popcorn, and because he will tell you every little single detail about something. And the fort that he was referencing, Fort Boyer, that's actually where Fort Morgan is now. So, I mean, I'm speechless, loss of words. Thank you to the family for coming again. Thank you, Ms. Felicia, for doing such a great job preserving all the rich history that we have here in Baldwin County. And I encourage everybody that wants to go by our archives department and look at some of this history and travel around. We have some great historic sites to visit. We have our historic app that you can go to now and look at all of these places and sites to visit, because Baldwin County really is one of the most historical spots in this state. So thank you so much.
The only thing that I'd like to say, Ms. Blackman, I'm sorry I didn't get to meet your husband. I've known Ms. Blackman for many years. My wife was a teacher with her at Pine Grove. And I could sit there and watching this, I could sit there and watch this all day. And I wish we had more time. But I'm glad that we do this for history, or Confederate history, and a history of Baldwin County. So thank y'all, and Felicia, for what y'all do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mary. And Mr. Blackman's sister is here with us today. Absolutely. Are you related to? A cousin. Okay. Well, thank you guys. It's so good to see you. Of course, I've known him since I was very young. He was a history teacher at Summerdale, and back then the school systems were a lot less kids here, and so Summerdale was all the way from first grade to ninth grade, and so there was no kindergarten when I went to school. That came when I was in the sixth grade. But Mr. Blackman taught junior high history at Summerdale School back in the day, and I had him for 7th, 8th, and 9th. I've started clarifying that, because when I say I had him for history for 3 years, I didn't want somebody to think I failed and had him 3 years in a row. So, but it was such a small school that you actually had the same teacher, if they were still a teacher there, for all 3 years. And his method of teaching was phenomenal. I know that maybe some kids might not have gotten it that way, but if you were a student that really wanted to learn history, he had a method of teaching that history. He allowed you to go at your own pace. And so if you could finish the 7th grade curriculum, you could start on the 8th grade curriculum when you were still in the 7th grade. And if you could finish that, you could, matter of fact, I don't remember, I know I finished it before the 9th grade. And then he would allow you to do special projects and things like that, read. He loved to read. He also was, when you're in a small school like that, he also was my study hall teacher, and he'd sit up there reading. I'm sure it was a history book. I probably wasn't paying attention to what he was reading back then. Of course, 7th, 8th, 9th grade kids, had shenanigans going on trying to And I knew he saw everything we were doing, but he kind of just let us go. But he was also my first basketball coach. And I don't think I've mentioned that before. Those who've heard us during Confederate History Month have probably said, yeah, we heard about you talking about him being your teacher and how much you loved him and all that kind of stuff. But he was my first basketball coach. And back then, this is a little tidbit of history as far as Summerdale School didn't have a regular gymnasium. We had an auditorium, and it had a flat roof. And I know if my high school coach hears me talking right now, he's going like, yep. My jump shot was forever flattened because of that. You know, I had to figure out how to shoot and get that shot in without hitting the beam in the top of the flat building. I mean, for those of y'all who have, seen some of these smaller auditoriums around, I think they had this blueprint that they used for all these schools around. I don't know, it wasn't just Baldwin County, because I see them in other places. Like I've passed by Leroy, I'm like, that looks like Summerdale School. I've passed other places, So they built those back in the 1920s, and they had these auditorium rooms that are not very big, to be honest with you. When we were a little kid, they seemed like they were big. And then when you go in them today, you think, wow, we played basketball in this room here that's got a flat ceiling. But Mr. Blackman was not only, he did a lot of things at those schools, because today the structures are different, but they did it all back then. I think he might have even been the assistant principal during one time frame when Mr. Hollingsworth was the principal. But that was back when they could still paddle you, and so I tried to be on my best behavior. I did not want to get a paddling, and I did not, but I might have deserved one time or two, but I somehow escaped it. But I just want to say that there are things, like you said, Miss Mary, that I did not know about Baldwin County, and he has taught us. And what an honor and a privilege after all those years. I think my last year at Summerdale School was 1982. And what is it now, 2023? But when I was elected in 2018 along with Jeb, I got to be reunited with Mr. Blackman. And I know different people call him different things, but to me, he will always have been Mr. Blackman, because he was my teacher. And actually, I am so thankful for all the teachers, but some made a bigger imprint on your life than other people did. And I hope that those relics of us that are still from the past that remember, it's almost like it was yesterday, that I can still, he had you memorize a lot of things from history, and that's how you could pass to go on to the next level. And I can still, maybe not all of it, but a lot of things that he had us memorize, like the Gettysburg Address, the preamble, and different things like that. I can't remember the whole Gettysburg, but there's so many things about that I don't think that I would have ever learned had I not had a teacher that taught the way he taught. And so I just am so thankful for people like Mr. Burt, and I'm also more than thankful that I got to be reunited with him for the time frame that before he passed away. And I remember going up to Bicentennial Park one morning after a commission meeting, and thank goodness it was in, I still have all the photos in my phone of my little adventure with him. He got one of the, what do you call those little ATV things you ride around on? It was a mule or a gator or something like that. And he took me all around that park and told me everything about Bicentennial Park and how much he loved working there. Being from the other end of the county, I had no idea he was doing that for all that time frame that he was doing it. And so what an honor, what a privilege to have had someone that had a passion for history. History is so very important. And just thank you for being here today. And thank you, Felicia, because that was really, really cool.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Blackman, for coming up here this morning to accept this proclamation on behalf of Baldwin County. If it happened in Baldwin County, Burt knew it. And I mean, he was, like I say, he was definitely a history buff. And, he could tell you some stories, and you think, golly, And he did his research, and he made sure it was true before he said it. So, he was a remarkable person. I don't know, how he did all that, and plus all the other stuff that he was engaged in to be able to do that. So, with that being, thank you so very much. And Felicia, thank you for the presentation honoring Mr. Blackman for what he did. He was a remarkable man. So thank you all very much. All right, commissioners.
All that being said, I make a motion that we accept this proclamation proclaiming the month of April, approve this proclamation proclaiming the month of April 2023 as Confederate History Month in Baldwin County, Alabama.
All right, got a motion made by Commissioner Underwood to proclaim the Confederate History Month in Baldwin County in April of 2023.
Second.
I hear seconded by Commissioner McKenzie. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Okay, next.
Next, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, is another proclamation. This proclamation is for National Telecommunicators Communication Officers Week, April 9th through the 15th of 2023.
Okay.
It's your turn.
Sheriff Matt? Let him get up there. Okay, proclaiming April 9th through the 15th, 2023 as National Telecommunicators Communication Officers Week in Baldwin County, Alabama. Whereas the second week of April is dedicated to the men and women who serve as public safety telecommunications specialists, providing invaluable services to law enforcement personnel throughout the county and throughout the country and in Baldwin County, Alabama. And whereas telecommunicators were first recognized nationwide by the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office in 1991, and whereas in the early 1990s, the National Association of Public Safety Communications Officials received from the United States Congress a proclamation through Resolution 284 to create National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And whereas over 500,000 telecommunications specialists provide professional services to first responders throughout the United States. And whereas the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office receives invaluable and crucial services provided by communications officers. And whereas the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office Communications Division receives approximately 100,000 calls for services each year. And whereas Baldwin County 911 received an additional 120,433 911 calls for service in year 2022 for fire, medical, and law enforcement related emergencies. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Baldwin County Commission and the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office that the week of April 9th through the 15th, 2023 is hereby designated as Telecommunicators and Communications Officers Week in Baldwin County, Alabama.
We need to make a few moves. I'm sure.
Joby. Commission, just want to take a minute while these men and women are here. A lot of times we refer to as first responders, but our communications officers, both at the Sheriff's Office and 911, they're the front line. The front line is the person that's picking up that phone when somebody is on the other end asking for help or looking for guidance or seeking some type of assistance. And in 37 years of law enforcement in Baldwin County, I've seen the communications part of law enforcement 911 go from a CB radio to something now that is digitized, electronic, with all of the CAD systems and everything we have. And I can say with 100% certainty that I know in looking around and working with other departments around the state, even around this region, we probably have the best communications in this whole area. In fact, a lot of agencies sometimes even have to work through our system and patch into our system to help them assist in the jobs that they're doing. So I just want to say a thank you to all of our men and women in communications for what they do.
I want to echo what the sheriff said. I'm honored to be able to represent the professionals that we have at Baldwin County 911, and they are the first responders. They're the heroes, and all of the telecommunicators in the county that you guys have recognized. There's approximately 1,600 and something telecommunicators statewide. This past year, we had a great opportunity. The state has recognized them as first responders for the first time. It's an effort that we're hoping continues nationwide and can continue to offer them some of the critical benefits that they need in this job. It's a very difficult profession, and it's very hard for them to tenure their career, much like a lot of us that work in different capacities. But what they do, I'm proud to serve these folks, and very proud of the partnership that we have with the Sheriff's Office and all the partner agencies in Baldwin County, including the Commission. So we appreciate the proclamation and the recognition. Thank you.
Commissioners, Commissioner Ball.
The first thing I'd like to do is maybe stand up and give these guys a round of applause. Thank you guys, everybody in telecommunications. Like has been stated a couple of times, y'all are the true first responders, and without your guidance, who knows where we would be. Be a lot of problems. The information that you give back and forth is crucial, and plus there's a lot of times that there's the unheard of stories where maybe law enforcement hadn't gotten involved yet or whatever, and y'all have actually helped somebody out on the other end of the line, whether it be saving a life, who's somebody that wanted to take their life or whatever. Y'all get a plethora of calls that's that are all emergency related, and then some are, as I've heard, or not, but y'all take every single call, and it could be that somebody could call in and say that there's a turtle crossing the road or something and call 911, but y'all treat every single call with dignity and respect and represent this county and state well, and appreciate everything that y'all do, and putting yourselves in those positions and staying calm during the conversations that y'all have to have on a daily basis, and keeping every single bit of our law enforcement officers safe, and keeping our medical and fire staff safe as well. So thank y'all for what you do.
I'd just like to say thank you, because I've been there. I've been on the road for 25 years as a state trooper, and if it wasn't for dispatch or telecommunications or whatever they're called now, they're not called dispatchers anymore. But I just want to say thank you, because you saved my life many times when I was in the rural counties and with the domestic. Believe it or not, I've only been to one domestic call. Troopers don't go to a lot of domestic calls, but in a rural county, that dispatcher saved my life and the other police officers there. So I really want to say thank y'all. You're not recognized enough for what y'all do, and I wish we could do more, but thank you again.
Thank you. I think that knowing you guys are there and knowing how good you are gives a lot of peace of mind to people. And, a lot of times I don't even think about that if something happens that, we got these things with us all the time, you guys are there. And I know that, I didn't realize this at one point in time. Someone told me about a lot of times you don't know what happens once the medical teams take over or the law enforcement or whatever, because, you're there with them from the very beginning, but then you might not know what happens later. But I know that must sometimes, I know you get a lot of training, but you're still a human being, and I know that you care. I hope you wouldn't even want to do this job if you didn't care, but I know you don't. I know you do care. But I know one person that survived a 911, a medical issue, and is related to me, and it's my brother, and he talks about you guys. I bet there is not a day goes by in his life right now that he doesn't talk about the life-saving efforts that you guys extended toward him, and he firmly believes, in addition to the good Lord having his hand on him that night, that it was because of your knowledge and expertise and everything. And so I'm gonna tell you, he's alive because of the good Lord, but he's also alive because of your assistance, and the Lord works through you guys as well. And I will say that he is one of your biggest fans and one of your biggest advocates. I think he's a leaf on your tree up there. And I sometimes I'm like, I know you survived. I know you're alive. And I have to sit there, and he's like, man, you won't believe I talked to this person today, and I told him what happened to me and all this kind of stuff. So I also have a niece that's a dispatcher for a local police department, and I sometimes see, I've called her before. I knew she got off work like at 6 o'clock, and she's like, I'm just shook right now. I can't talk to you. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she'll be like, I just can't talk about it. I just don't know what happened in this scenario, and I just had to get off this call, and I left. And also, you guys, I don't exactly know what you go through, but I can only imagine, and I'm so thankful that the state of Alabama recognizes you guys as first responders. And I know that you're there, and I know that there's lives that are saved because of you guys and your care and your compassion. And I'm just thankful that we've got, through the sheriff's dispatch, the local police dispatch, and through the 911 system we have here in Baldwin County, you guys are top notch. And I hope that if I ever need you, I don't even think about you not being there. So I hope I don't, but if I do, I know you're there, and I appreciate you guys, and I'm thankful that you've got the technology and the ability to have what you need at your fingertips. And I can't even imagine some days what you might go through, but we appreciate you guys. I do, more than anything. And like I said, I got a brother who's a big fan of y'all.
Okay, just looking and listening to, in the proclamation, looking at, there was 225,000 calls made in Baldwin County. That's almost a call per person for every citizen that's in this county. That's a lot of calls. And each one of them were unique in its own way. And y'all have to go through, listen to everything for catch details and everything else, because y'all providing some much needed assistance to our law enforcement officers on what to expect when they get there. And I thank each and every one of y'all for the hard work that y'all do. And like I say, and I hate to say it, but those numbers are probably going to increase again as we continue to go on. But thank y'all, each and every one of y'all. Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adopt this proclamation.
I got a motion made by Commissioner Ball to proclaim the week of April the 9th through the 15th as National Telecommunication Officers Week.
I second.
Seconded by Commissioner McKenzie. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. All right, next.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is the Sheriff Mack comes before you with an annual report from the Sheriff's Office.
Once again, good morning, Mr. Chairman and County Commission. Today it's my honor to deliver to you our 2022 annual report. I've got this pretty much condensed down to hit most of the high points. It came from about a 215-page document that we compiled some information. I'm going to share that with you. But before I do, I just want to recognize some of my staff that is here today because they may be having to leave to go do some interviews and some other things. But I have my Chief Deputy, Anthony Lowry. Of course, I have Major Tony Nolfi, this here over the Enforcement Command. Captain Clint Cadenhead, our Budget Finance Director, Kim Kelly, my assistant Tammy Ryder, and Elena Elliott is not with us today, our HR Director, part of our staff. And I just want to thank them for all their efforts to include everybody else here from the Sheriff's Office for what they have done this past year. So just very briefly, just to kind of get us focused in, this is the mission of the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office. Pretty much self-explanatory, but of course, I think it's pretty much in the last few words in the bottom sentence: service, integrity, and professionalism. Those are things that our Sheriff's Office strives for every day. Our core values, as I said, honesty and integrity, service, accountability, teamwork, trust and respect, professionalism, and leadership. So this is the current I guess say demographic of the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office, and in fact I'll actually have an updated number on that. But when I compiled this annual report a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago, and put it together, as you can see, we have 390 approved positions. This past year we averaged 335 employees on staff. You can see the numbers there. To update you on that, we currently have 20 deputy sheriff openings right now, 10 corrections officer openings, I believe 4 or 5 communication officer openings, and then the rest is admin. Once again, we're 58% male, 42% female. You can see our other demographics up there. And if you look at the last 2 lines, you'll see that 54% of the Sheriff's Office has been with the Sheriff's Office less than 5 years. And only 7% have been here more than 20. A little bit of synopsis. I'm proud to report that last year we actually finished in the black in all of our budget modules. We ran probably the closest budget that we've run in recent years, right down to, as you can see, just a few $1,000s, but we did finish to the good in all of our budgetary items last year. Our discretionary accounts, to break that down for you, of course, our biggest source of revenue that comes from discretionary accounts is inmate housing. That is the cap agreement that we have with the U.S. Marshal Service for housing federal inmates, as well as the city of Bay Minette, their inmates, and we also house some other inmates from time to time on contract. As you know, last year, the concealed carry permit issue took effect both in October with the lifetime permits, and then in January where permits were not required within the state of Alabama. So last year we saw an overall reduction of 47% in our concealed carry permit sales. The majority of that money goes towards training and equipment, so we did see a reduction in that. Our seizures, federal estate, we had $394,000. Major expenses last year, once again, inmate feeding. We prepared over 665,000 meals. We run the largest restaurant north of I-10. And so those are 3 meals a day. Our average meal cost right now is running about $1.35 a meal. And that's through one of our vendors. Some seizures that when you see the seizure money, that's money that a lot of times if we work a case with another agency and there's a seizure, a cash seizure or a distribution, it flows through the county commission and the sheriff's office, then back to those municipalities. So the seizures that you see there, that's money that we shared back with our people like on our drug task force, the other things that we're a part of. Equipment, these are non-budget equipment items, so we spent $284,000 out of discretionary, and then our travel. Travel also includes, I labeled that travel, but that's travel, training, education, and things of that nature. You're also familiar with such things as to do with online training like the Lexapol that we just approved and renewed this year. So that includes all of those. Reimbursables, we sent back to the county commission $2.1 million that we collected in different fees, fines, and as I said, through our CAP agreement, things of that nature that comes back to the county commission. So our activity, this past year we opened up 3,400 cases. We had 942 on-view arrests. You can see the breakdown of our traffic contacts. We had 7% traffic citations issued. We had written warnings 20%, verbal warnings 73%. And as you know, our primary mission is not traffic. That is handled by ALEA in the rural areas of the county. But we do get called upon from time to time to help out with traffic in different areas, particularly what we refer to as some of our hotspot areas. Civil process, the execution part of it, that is where we're going out and actually service of different things such as the seizure of a home and eviction, those type things. During COVID, evictions were suspended, if you remember, from the federal and the state level. And so we actually are still seeing some of those evictions that were actually posted back in 2021 that are now just working their way through the court system and processes being served. So we had a dramatic increase with that, but part of that was simply the fact that we were still taking care of some post-COVID issues. Legal documents, that's going to be all your subpoenas, juvenile orders, things of that nature. That number was actually down a little bit, pretty much about the same. Subpoenas were up, and that's a direct correlation. Our court system is now back pretty much fully operational, so we're seeing jury trials again over the past year and a lot of court hearings. Writ for body, those are your involuntary commitments. Now that's up 2% this past year, but I will remind you it was up 40% last year. So we had 85. Those were actually individuals that were involuntary committed by our probate judge, and so that number was up this year. Crimes reported, of course, you can see these numbers are very good in the sense of compared to both a regional and national average. We did see, and I think, no, Troy's here with the coroner's office, we still have seen an increase in suicides countywide. We worked 14 of those. And once again, I know you know this, but for our audience, these numbers are strictly those that were reported and worked by the sheriff's office. This does not include municipalities. So all municipalities maintain their own crime stats. So these are just the ones that the sheriff's office has worked. And of course, I think it has been mentioned with the 911 and the sheriff's office, and even with Nikki Whitaker that was here earlier from Care House, you can see domestics, a lot of our calls, whether they be verbal or physical. And also you can kind of look at the harassing communication and harassment, verbal and physical. You can see those make up a majority of our actually dispatch calls that we have. We'll explain one thing. You notice we had 106 missing persons. Well, a lot of times those are resolved within minutes or hours. We take a lot, and a lot of those come from outside the area. There may be somebody that's traveled here and they can't locate them. You know, trying to call them, hey, would you go check the ABC address and see if John's there? We haven't been able to locate him. So those were actually classified as that. Some of our more serious crimes, once again, cases that we worked, and as you can see, once again, I refer back to Ms. Whitaker from Care House. You see that we actually worked 38 juvenile sex crime cases just in the sheriff's office alone this past year. I do agree with her. I think the reporting system is back. I think that people are reporting. I think the educational component that DHR, Care House, and our other social service agencies are doing helps to encourage those people to report. Theft, 507, and I will tell you that most of those thefts are with items less than $500. It's what we usually refer to as our misdemeanor type theft issues. We have seen an increase in automobile theft. I think part of that reason, once again, why we may have 240,000 residents any given day, I think it's an average of 2.7 vehicles per household. So you can look at over 500,000 vehicles in Baldwin County, and then you also look at the tourist population, things of that nature. So we have a lot of vehicles in Baldwin County every day. Traffic stops, we conducted 18,704, and we served 15,000 warrants from our court system. So you talk about the calls for service from our dispatch. We dispatched 85,000 calls this past year, and that does not include a self-initiated contact. So if a deputy is out actually making a traffic stop, that's a self-initiated contact. These are actually calls that flowed through our area. We have 8 patrol areas in Baldwin County. They do run from top to bottom. So of course, Area 1 is Stockton North, all the way down to Area 8, which is Fort Morgan area, the area we cover on Fort Morgan Road. And once again, no surprise, if you look at areas 4, 5, and 6, that's pretty much the south central part of Baldwin County. Of course, very dense in population there, and our highest call volume there. Just a little map. I know it's hard to see, but you can kind of see we have the 8 patrol areas, and then when each area is broken down by a sector, and we have deputies assigned to each one of those patrol areas and respond to those calls. The color portions of this map are the municipal jurisdictions. The gray area is all of the county jurisdiction. We do know that the city of Fairhope has given us notice. They are going to withdraw back from their extraterritorial police jurisdiction at the first of the year. We believe it's going to be a half mile that they're going to draw back, so we will inherit a little bit larger call volume, particularly in the South Fairhope, over towards the Bell Forest area. We'll have an increased call volume next year that will come there because we will then become their first responders in that area. Our school resource program has done very well again this year. These are the schools that the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office services along with the school population. As you can see, our largest school is Bell Forest. I think that number is actually closer to 1,200 right now. They've actually had some more students that came in after the semester break. And then, of course, you can see our smallest school, which is Swift. We're still running our Camp Shining Star, which is a partnership that we have with the Baldwin County Board of Education. We will have 4 summer camps, and we average about 100 children per camp, each one that we do, and they're geographically located throughout the county. Off-duty employment has become a huge issue. All of the law enforcement agencies in Baldwin County now are working off-duty employment. This is where an entity can hire a law enforcement officer to be there for a specific amount of time. Most of your municipalities now that lease out facilities for a wedding, or if it's some type of civic organization, Mardi Gras, things of that nature, if there's alcohol being served there, their insurance companies require that they have on-present law enforcement. So we do have a lot of that. Of course, we're getting geared up. We have been in our spring break. We do work some off-duty things with spring break. But our biggest contributor last year is we spent over 2,700 hours at local churches. And most of these churches are hiring the off-duty deputies to come out and assist with traffic. One of our largest ones is Church of His Presence on 181. And you know what the traffic's like on 181. Mm-hmm. And so they're down there working traffic both with 3 Circle as well, which is just around the corner. But we do that, and we also work some other individual things that they request us to do. Our CID unit, Narcotics Division, that kind of gives you the cases that they work. These are your felony cases. What is assigned, what is cleared, our clearance rate. Once again, it's above about twice the national average in both of those categories that we're to the good. We still see the top 3 drugs as marijuana, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. While we still see a little bit more marijuana than we do some of the other drugs, of course, the most deadliest one is fentanyl. And we have had recently, just within the past weeks, we had another deputy, I want to say it was 2 weekends ago, we had a deputy that we believed had a fentanyl exposure. It was a light exposure, but he had to be transported to the freestanding clinic at Malbus and had to be treated there because it was believed he was exposed to fentanyl following a traffic stop. Our cyber crimes unit, this is of course something that we've only had now for just a few years. These are mainly telephones that are being analyzed, but also includes computers such as internet, children crimes, internet pornography, things of that nature. So 294 devices examined with 89,000 gigabytes reviewed. I would refer to Mr. Peacock on that. That's a lot. So it's a lot.
That's a lot of bytes.
Our corrections, these are our vendor partners. These are the ones that we have contracts with. Kimball's, which is currently had been purchased by Turnkey Commissary, provides all of our commissary services to the correction center. Summit Food, those are the meals that we're preparing every day. ViPath, formerly known as GTL, that's our inmate phone service. And then Quality Correctional Health Care is our medical service provider within the correction center. So an explanation as to line number 1. We've used this number when we were planning and building on Tower B, the construction project that's going on right now. You've always heard me refer to that we had 649 beds. But you're going to see that number now is actually 580. And that is a direct result of the mental health crisis that we have in this area. So the way that works, if I have an inmate who is in a 4-bunk cell, and they are in a mental crisis or having a mental issue or have to be isolated for their own protection, I pull those 3 inmates out of that 4-bed cell. So now I have a 4-bed cell with 1 bed. And I'm having to take those 3 now and double them up in other areas. So at any given time, we have somewhere between 20 to 25 inmates that we are working with some type of mental health issue. Either they're pending evaluation, they may be under some treatment that is going on by our 2 workers that help assess them in the correction center. So we are feeling the results of the mental health issue. And this is, once again, this doesn't take into consideration what we're doing with probate, with involuntary commitments, and some of the other things that we work. So we averaged about 18 people a day book in and book out as they're coming in and out of the correction center. We handled transfers of inmates. This includes, of course, adult and juvenile inmates. We have seen an increase in juveniles that are being sent to other facilities across the state. One in particular is in Lee County. And so we take care of transporting those juveniles from your JPO, Juvenile Detention Center, to take them up there and bring them back before the court. Inmate video visitations, that's our primary mode of visitation, and we offer that to all the inmates. 447 on-site attorney visits coming there, and then we had 898 video conferences. A lot of times these are occurring with people that are in the judicial system and things that are going on with their bond hearings and things of that nature. We screened 6,653 inmates for mental illness. Now, the reason that number, we essentially screen every inmate that comes into our facility that's going to be there longer than just a few hours. So if we recognize that they're there on a felony, if we recognize that they have to go before a judge, a lot of your DUIs and things of that nature, they're not screened. They're just going to be there for 12 hours and they're monitored. So we had 1,372 mental health visits. These were by mental health counselors that are within our facility. 87 of those were referred to our new mental health court that's currently being overseen by Judge Scott Taylor, and we're currently working with him to develop that program. 19,000 suicide watches. Now that may be one individual may have 20 suicide watches within a day. Because when we have someone that either threats or takes some type of overt act or communicates that they're thinking about harming themselves, or they're in a high-risk category, we have to check on that individual every 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes we have to lay the human eye on them to make sure they're okay and tend to their needs. So that's why you see that number so high. One individual can prompt many, depending on how long they're on a suicide watch, whether it's for a day, 4 days, 5 days, whatever. We're still battling COVID. In fact, last week we actually popped back up to a little bit over a dozen COVID cases back in the correction center, but we do still screen for COVID. We had one vaccination clinic last year when we had a little bit of a spike. Earlier in the year, we did do a vaccination clinic within the correction center where we offered the vaccine. One of the things we have seen a big increase is the use of force incidents. And once again, I think that the mental health component is going to have a little bit of an influence on this. But we had 252 use of force incidents. Most of those were inmate on inmate, but we did have 47 corrections deputies that were assaulted that we had in the facility last year, 2 of which required brief hospitalization. 57 new corrections deputies were trained. We had 8 training classes last year. We're one of the few jail facilities, corrections facilities in southern Alabama that runs a corrections academy. This past year, we did open our corrections academy back up to the municipalities. So we've had 3 municipalities so far since October the 1st, the beginning of our budget year, that have sent their corrections officers through our corrections academy, which runs for 5 weeks. Total of 3,800 hours of training, and that included an average of 32 hours of continuing education for our corrections deputies. We did start an FTO training program where we kind of enhanced a little bit of the training after the basic training within the Correction Center. And of course, last year, one of the biggest things we had was we had a reaccreditation on our Level 1 certification by the National Institute of Jail Operations, showing that we were 100% in compliance with the adopted and standard rules as it relates to incarceration. Electronic monitoring, these numbers are coming back up again because, as I said, our court system is coming back and a little bit more activity. So we had 375 individuals on GPS ankle monitoring, 16 on alcohol monitoring. 174 of those cases were closed by a judge, which means that judge simply removed them out of the program. We had 39 individuals that cut their ankle monitors off, and then 36 actually violated by flight leaving this area. Our work release program, this program was just pretty much killed during COVID, and we're starting to come back, but there's a delayed effect because our work release, that's ordered by a judge. So we're now seeing those numbers start to come back up. We are going to be expanding within our work release program some this next year, which is also going to include our community service that will be increasing those hours and those participants as well. So revenue derived from our community corrections pretrial release was $311,000. That was money that is paid by fines, or if they're in a work release program where they're paying some of their monies back that is owed by court costs, court fees, things of that nature. Law enforcement support services, we're currently maintaining 270 motor vehicles, but it's 316 if you count all of our ATVs, RTVs, the trailers that we use, the generators, all those things, over 316 units. You can see there, we run all of our own maintenance. The only thing we do not do on our vehicles is body work, but we do all of our own engine, tire, vinyl, electronic, radio, installation. Everything is done by our individuals in that division. Corrections maintenance, they processed over 1,300 work orders. We're so very blessed to have our maintenance staff in the Correction Center. It keeps us from having to go to outside vendors. The majority of the time, we're able to maintain that. We talked about the plumbing issue that we finished up last year. A lot of those plumbing issues followed that. Had to go back and correct some items that were needed to be corrected from the replumbing that we did. Having to replace a lot of the lighting issues, and then of course the air conditioning, heating, we always are looking at trying to improve that. Some of those units are old and have to be replaced each year. Our litigation. So currently we have 8 cases that are currently in civil litigation. 3 of those are on use of force, 1 motor vehicle accident, 2 contested cash seizures, and 2 employee actions. We work with County Risk Management Services on those, and those are our pending cases. We have, those are our pending, not filed, and those include 3 in custody deaths that we had. 2 we believe are going to be narcotic related. 1 was a natural death, but those cases are still within the statute of limitations for a claim to be filed. And we had 3 use of force incidences that were also are still within the window of litigation. So what's ahead? We're going to continue with the Correction Center construction. They're essentially now about the 3rd floor out of the ground on Tower B. I want to say the last time we had talked, they were running about 45 to 50 days behind. Most of that has been weather related. They've just recently added a lot more landing of materials over by the Baymanet Intermediate School. You can see the containers over there across from the Bratz building, so the supplies are coming in. The Bay Minette Police Department is well under construction on Doleaf Street, and once they can finish that building, then we will occupy the south end of our current building that we're in now. So we're anticipating the renovation of that building, where we will be moving our budget finance and HR folks will be moving into that building. Recruitment and retention of employees. A total of 34 openings in the sheriff's office right now. Last week on Facebook alone, there were 6 municipal police departments that were advertising for open positions in law enforcement and corrections, as well as us. It's a challenge. We are going to have to do some things to address that. And one of those that we'll be looking at is working on our compensation for all of our employees. Baldwin County is a very competitive market. When you can go to work at Buc-ee's making $18 to $20 an hour, it's a competitive market. And so we're having to address some of those issues, and we'll be bringing some proposals to the commission during our budget hearings on that. Computer software replacement, this is something that's come up over the past year. One of our vendors that provides a majority of our computer software, we've had this program now for many years. And quite honestly, there are some better products out there, and we are currently working with some of our municipalities. If this situation were to work out, we might be able to connect all law enforcement in Baldwin County under one system. And that would be huge. Particularly when you have a mass incident, such as something that happens at a school, you have some type of the hurricanes, things of that nature. So that's a kind of in the research stage right now. So this past year, as we went into this year, this is what I challenged all of our staff to do, is to dedicate themselves to persist without exception the pursuit of excellence in everything that we do. And now I'll open it up for questions.
Sheriff, the only thing that I like to ask, when you hire a new deputy, you talk about recruitment and retention, what is their tier with the Sheriff's Department? Is it tier 1 or is it tier 2 or tier 3?
I believe we're all bringing back into tier 1 now, aren't we?
I think that's what
if they were hired into RSA before January 1st of 2013, they'll automatically be tier 1. And
Sure.
if it was after, they're considered tier 2, but as long as they work for us, they're paying the tier 1 benefits.
Good. Because I know that's a big issue with the state that has. They're hiring troopers and that none of them. And I really don't understand why we're so shorthanded in Baldwin County, because when I was a state trooper, I always wanted to come to the county. And it was because it was a place to work. You had the beaches, you had everything you wanted. And I just can't believe that the society or the people that's out there now that don't want a job, especially with the Sheriff's Department here.
Well,
it's just,
I think too, you know, it's a nationwide problem. Of people wanting to go to work in law enforcement. And a lot of those positions that we have that are not filled were positions that y'all approved in October, and we just haven't been able to fill them because, you know, people aren't applying. And I've actually been invited on April the 18th, I've been invited to represent the National Sheriff's Association at a meeting with the Bureau of Justice Administration in Washington, D.C., and they're the ones that administer all the law enforcement grants that come down, the burn jag, all of those grants. And from what I'm told, they're actually looking at coming up with grants that agencies can get on the specific topic of recruitment and retention. And because it has been a nationwide issue.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions, Sheriff. I was just going to make a brief comment. I could talk all day about the Sheriff's Office, and I'm just going to make it brief. Thank you so much for the excellent presentation that you bring us every year. Thank you and every bit of your staff for what y'all do for this county. I still say it's the best run Sheriff's Department in this part of the country that I know of. So we're humble in the fact that we get to support such a great agency, and we never hesitate to support you. So
thank you.
We look forward to our continued partnership with you guys, and thank you for everything that y'all do.
Thank you.
Well, Sheriff, you already know how I feel about the Baldwin County Sheriff's Department. I think it's one of the best. I like Commissioner Ball when I was a state trooper here. And I remember years ago, I'd always run 1027s, 1028s to the sheriff's department because it was just the communications officers were just excellent. And I know we've already talked about that, but I can't just not say enough about them. And I really appreciate what you do for the sheriff's department and your staff as also, and your chief deputy and all your deputies. They don't get recognized enough. And I'm just glad that you're here and presenting this presentation to us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff. It's always a privilege to, like Jeb said, to be able to support you guys, and an honor as well. And I appreciate your annual reports because that's one of the things that sometimes communication is so important in many ways. And being able to hear, and you do such a great job, and I thank you guys all the time. I know that it takes all different facets of what we do to make everything work. And I saw your statistic about how many people has worked less than 5 years, and only, was it 7% hadn't been there more than 20 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, hope maybe that means we don't have a lot going to retire very soon. Maybe they'll hang in there for the 25, 30 year mark. Hopefully that's maybe a good thing, and maybe some of the young ones are thinking about retiring out and having a full, long career with you. And I talk to many people who, honestly, I don't even know all of them when I talk to them. And my eyesight's gotten so bad, I have to pull out my readers to see their name tag. But I see a lot of positive comments come from some of the younger guys you have on force, and I hope that they will want to make a career out of it. So let's hope that's a good statistic, not a bad one.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I tell all of our classes when they come through, I want this to be your last job.
Yes.
Sheriff, thank you so very much for your leadership. And also, you probably got one of the finest agencies in the whole state of Alabama. I'm not bragging on it just because it's Baldwin County, but y'all have got, just like having an accredited correctional thing. That's big.
Yes, sir.
And I know you worked very hard to get that, and to make sure that we had that, because it makes a big difference in the way y'all see things and the way things are handled. And we're down on our forces, but I think we're down everywhere.
Yes, sir.
And I think a lot of it is the stigma of everybody is against the law enforcement. There's not everybody, but there's still that stigmatization, of law enforcement is nothing but a bunch of crooks, basically what they're saying, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and they're trying to defund them everywhere, and that's not the case here in Baldwin County.
No, sir, it is not.
We have some very fine and dedicated individuals who serve each and every one of these positions that they're in. And I just want to thank them and you for your leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all. Have a good day.
Yes, sir. Okay. Next,
Mr. Chairman, is other staff recommendations. Next up is item FA1, which is Baldwin County Board of Equalization. This is the appointment of a temporary board member. This is to appoint Mr. Al Thompson and to recognize service performed by Mr. Jimmy Boyd, who has retired or resigned from the position.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve FA1.
all right, got a motion made by Commissioner Ball, seconded by Commissioner Underwood. To appoint Mr. Al Thompson and send the thank you letter to okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Ayes have it. Next,
Mr. Chairman, is item FA2, which is Baldwin County Eastern Shore Healthcare Authority board appointments as related to the Baldwin County Eastern Shore Healthcare Authority. Take the following actions: appoint one of the following 3 nominees to fill the place seat in unexpired term of Dr. Richard Rowe for a pro rata reduced 6-year term. The list is before you. Please state your selection out loud for the record.
Commissioners, y'all have somebody, the board is recommending Dr. Joey Carter.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the board's recommendation for Dr. Joey Carter to be appointed.
Okay, I got a motion made by Commissioner Underwood to appoint Dr. Joey Carter. Do I hear a second?
Jeb said second.
Seconded by Commissioner Ball.
Commissioner Ball.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is item FN1, is resignation of the county engineer.
I'd like to go ahead at this time, if y'all don't mind, I'll read Mr. Nunnally's resignation. And it's addressed to all four of the county commissioners. As commissioners, please accept this as my official notice of resignation from my position as county engineer. My last day of employment with Baldwin County will be May the 12th, 2023. It has been an honor to serve the commission and citizens of Baldwin County as county engineer. I have grown both personally and professionally and will miss those I've worked with over the years. Sincerely, Joey Nunnally, PE. I'd like to also say today, I didn't know this until a little bit ago, today's Joey's 29th year with retirement system. Congratulations.
Awesome. That's awesome.
That's awesome. It is, 29 years. That said, do I hear a motion that we accept Joey's resignation effective May the 12th, 2023?
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that this motion is just accepting the letter of resignation.
Yes, it is.
I mean, because I'm reading a part 2 of the staff recommendation where it's saying to the chairman to execute the correspondence of the Department of Transportation appointing Mr. Frank Lundy as interim engineer. I think we have advertisements out there for the highway engineers going on right now. We're getting some applications back in, and I would just ask that we wait on appointing an interim an interim engineer, since Mr. Nunnally's going to be here till May the 13th. No need to appoint an interim today.
Why isn't there a reason to appoint an interim?
Because we still have a highway engineer.
Yeah, we only got one person to put in for the job, and to be honest, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people put in for this job.
We've got more meetings until this day, so.
I like to go ahead and appoint them and make them. This number 2 is approve the chairman to execute the correspondence.
Well, let's take the first part first, if y'all don't mind.
The problem is, Mr. Chairman, it's a one agenda item with 2 parts. So, you're sitting here saying let's approve, accept the letter of recommendation. I got that. I'm not going to be slicked into just automatically number 2 being approved. So we need to either pull that from this agenda item and vote on that separately, or just take it out of this agenda totally. I don't know how it's going to work, but
where did you see a second part of this thing in the agenda?
It's under staff recommendation.
There.
Okay, let me go back to there.
It says for us to approve the chairman.
Just one second.
To execute.
Under staff recommendation.
So if we do number 2, does that mean that as soon as the 13th come here, then that's when they kick in as the interim? Am I saying that correctly?
Right.
Well, if I'm reading it right, it says that we're approving the chairman to execute correspondence, appointing an interim county engineer and an interim assistant effective May the 13th, unless the county engineer position has been filled. So I think we have 2 more meetings in between there that would have a sufficient time frame if we need to do that. So I do think it could be separated out.
if for some reason we don't have an engineer in place by May 13th, then this was what we would be.
Yeah, we have a second meeting in April and a first meeting in May. I think we could wait until the first meeting in May before we have to.
I think, Mr. Chairman, with your abilities as being chairman, we could pull number 2 out of this recommendation for today's agenda item and vote on accepting the letter of the resignation.
Attorney is shaking his head, yeah.
Yeah, that, you could do that, absolutely.
Okay.
You can make the motion however you want the motion to
I'm
be.
going to go ahead and then pull item, the second part of the item where it says, approve the chairman to execute the correspondence to the Alabama Department of Transportation, appointing Frank Nunley as interim county engineer and Seth Peterson as the assistant county engineer effective May the 13th, unless the county engineer position has been filled.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, then I make a motion, we accept staff's recommendation and accept the letter of resignation for Mr. Joey Nunley effective the close of business day on May 12th, 2023.
Okay, got a motion made by Commissioner Ball to accept Commissioner Nunley's resignation effective May the 12th, 2023. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Underwood. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. All right. Next.
Next, Mr. Chairman, FQ1 was a discussion item. It has been discussed yesterday, and then in its place, there's an addendum item under HA3 for your consideration, coming up in just a minute.
Okay.
Moving on to ARPA, there are 3 items for your consideration. Item GA1, which is allocation of ARPA funds for Baldwin County Commission legal costs.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve item GA1.
I got a motion made by Commissioner Ball to approve item number GA1.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Underwood. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Next.
Next item is item GA2, which is a pre-award authorization letter of ARPA funds for City of Loxley water capacity improvements.
I'll make a motion that we approve item GA2.
Got a motion made by Commissioner Underwood to approve item number GA2.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner McKenzie. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Next.
Next item is item GA3, which is Resolution 2023-65, which is allocation of American Rescue Plan Act funds for Alta Point Health Assisted Outpatient Treatment Program.
All right.
I make a motion we approve GA4.
GA3.
Excuse me, yeah, GA3.
Okay.
Second.
All right, got a motion made by Commissioner McKenzie, seconded by Commissioner Ball to approve item number GA3. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Next. All right, next.
All right, GA4 was discussed yesterday. Now on to addenda. First item for addenda is HA1, which is East Central Baldwin County Water, Sewer, and Fire Protection Authority Board appointments.
Okay, Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I'll accept their recommendation for board appointment from East Central Baldwin Water and Sewer.
Second.
All right, got a motion made by Commissioner Underwood, seconded by Commissioner Ball to approve item number HA1. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Next.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is HA2, which is State Route 287 in Aluminum Way, temporary traffic signal, Resolution 2023-92, in a funding agreement with ALDOT.
Make a motion.
I got a motion made by Commissioner Ball, seconded by Commissioner Underwood. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next.
Next item is item HA3, which is a proposal from X-Chair LLC for consulting services related to Baldwin County Commission's organization structure. Please note that there was a replacement item, staff recommendation revised, and a MOA was replaced with a consulting agreement with recommended revisions by the county attorney.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve HA3 with a replacement item.
All right.
I'll second
Got a
it.
motion made by Commissioner Ball, seconded by Commissioner Underwood to approve item number HA3. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. All right, next, commission request. Commissioner Ball?
No, sir.
Commissioner McKenzie?
No, sir.
Commissioner Underwood?
No, sir.
All right, senior staff report?
None, sir.
Okay, I had that yesterday. All right. All right, county attorney's report?
No executive sessions today, so nothing from me.
Public comment? Any public comment? No public comment. Press questions? No press questions. Commissioner comments? Commissioner Ball?
I just thank everybody today for a great meeting. I think it went well, and a lot of information in this meeting today, and I appreciate everybody that went out of their way to put it together. So thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you for everybody, the staff. Joey, since I came in office in August, you've been top-notch helping me. You know, to be a county commissioner here, it takes everybody, and it takes all the staff to help each other and to help the county commissioners. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because it's been tough, and I like the challenge. And so for your new adventure, I'm happy for you. And thank you for your service for 29 years. Enjoy your retirement, too, at the same time. So tell Lucinda congratulations, because that was tough for her, too. So, but anyway, thank you.
I just want to thank everyone, and thank you, Joey. I wish you the best. I really do. And this is Easter week for those. I remember listening to the pastor pray this morning from the First United Methodist Church of Bay Minette, which is actually just right next door here, I think. And it reminded me of how important this week really, really is, and how that, to me, growing up, I think I thought Christmas was the most important. That was important, because I was a little kid and I liked to get presents. But now, as I've grown as an adult, I know how important it is to celebrate Resurrection Day. And so for that, I'm just so thankful. And there's not enough words to describe how thankful I am for that. That's all.
Thank everyone for getting us where we're at today with our agenda, the staff and the employees that helped get this thing together. And Joey, thank you so very much. I've had several years working with you, and you've done an outstanding job, and I appreciate it. There's a lot of work going into being a county engineer. There's a lot going on in this county with all the different funding mechanisms out there that you have been very influential in getting us some grants and get us a lot of other stuff that go along with that. So again, thank you so very much, and congratulations on your 29 years of service as an engineer for the state of Alabama. So thank you very much. All right. With that being said, do I hear a motion we adjourn?
So moved.
Been a motion made by Commissioner Underwood, seconded by Commissioner Ball to adjourn, and we adjourn at 10:28. Thank you.